Okay, good afternoon and thank you for joining us. My name is Kim Armstead, Public Information Officer with the Oakland Police Department. Today, Oakland Police Deputy Chief Drennan Lindsay, who oversees the Bureau of Investigations, will be addressing the violent weekend that occurred, to include 4 homicides, multiple shootings, and sideshow activity. Joining Deputy Chief Lindsay is our Homicide Commander, Lieutenant Hammond Wynn. Without further delay, I'll turn it over to Deputy Chief Lindsay.
Thank you, Officer Armstead. All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Deputy Chief Drennan Lindsay. I'm in charge of our Bureau of Investigations, and I'm here to give you an update as it relates to this weekend. Unfortunately, last weekend was a very violent and deadly weekend in our city, with 4 people losing their lives to gun violence and multiple shootings in our city. For the year, the Oakland Police Department has investigated 17 homicides compared to 16 this time last year. I want to give you a recap of the homicides that occurred this past weekend, starting with the incident that occurred on February 24th, 2023, just after 7:45 p.m. in the 7200 block of International Boulevard. Officers responded to the area following a ShotSpotter activation. When officers arrived, they located a victim who had sustained a gunshot wound. Preliminary investigation shows that 2 individuals shot the victim multiple times before leaving the area in a waiting vehicle. Medical personnel arrived on scene and provided medical attention. Unfortunately, the victim was pronounced deceased at the scene. The victim's name is being withheld pending notification to next of kin. Roughly 1 hour later into the investigation, officers heard shots being fired in the distance 2 blocks away. Officers then responded to the 7000 block of International Boulevard shortly before 8:45 p.m., where they located a victim inside a vehicle who had sustained gunshot wounds. Paramedic personnel arrived on scene and provided medical attention. Unfortunately, the victim was pronounced deceased at the scene. The victim's name is being withheld pending notification to next of kin. As officers were investigating these 2 separate homicide crime scenes, officers responded to the 2400 block of 67th Avenue just after 10:30 p.m. When officers arrived, they located a victim who had sustained a gunshot wound. Officers attempted life-saving measures, but unfortunately, the victim was pronounced deceased at the scene. A person was detained in connection with this crime. The victim's identity is being withheld pending notification of next of kin. As officers were investigating these 3 separate homicide crime scenes, a ShotSpotter activation occurred. Officers responded to the 8400 block of International Boulevard just before 12 a.m. on February 25th. When officers arrived, they located a victim who had sustained a gunshot wound. Medical personnel arrived on scene to assist the victim. The victim was transported to an area hospital where they were listed in critical condition. Just after 1:15 a.m. on February 26, 2023, officers responded to the 700 block of Webster Street to investigate a ShotSpotter activation. When officers arrived, they located a victim who had sustained a gunshot wound. Paramedic personnel arrived on scene to assist the victim, then transported them to an area hospital. 2 persons of interest were detained in connection with this homicide. The case is still actively being investigated to determine the connection to the persons taken into custody for this incident. The case will ultimately be presented to the district attorney for charging considerations. Unfortunately, this victim too was pronounced deceased at that hospital, and this victim's identity is being withheld pending notification of next of kin. Less than 2 hours later, just before 3 a.m., officers were dispatched to the 7800 block of Bancroft for a shooting. Upon arrival, officers located a male Vallejo resident suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. The victim was transported to an area hospital and is still in stable condition. At this time, we do not believe these shootings or homicides are connected. For this year, more than 50% of our homicide cases have been solved, with 6 being charged. We'd like to thank our officers for their hard work and dedication, and we are also asking the public for their assistance in all of these cases. If you know anything about these cases, we ask that you please contact the Oakland Police Department. Now we're open for any questions.
Chief, can you confirm if the victim from 70 in International is a woman? And then separately, and I'm sorry if I missed this, was there in fact someone detained for 67th in Avenal?
Okay, so for the first question, yes, it was a female. And then for your second question, I didn't quite get that.
Was there someone detained for the 67th and Avenal homicide?
67th and Avenal. We didn't have a homicide there. We did have a shooting. Let me just go back. At the 2400 block is 67th Avenue, so it was a shooting, but no one has been arrested in that case so far.
Sorry, 2400 block 67 was a homicide, right?
No, that was a shooting.
I spoke to the POA and they said that the waiting times to get a hold of someone 911 were hours and hours for numerous, even like up to 12 hours. So what do you say to the residents that need to get a hold of 911? You have like new academies with officers coming in, but like who's responsible for this? The city or?
Yes, that's a good question. So we continue to respond to priority calls as we see fit. For some of the other calls that may require online reporting or other means that are not related to violence, unfortunately, they may not be responded to as quickly.
But what do you think needs to be done, though? I mean, have you talked to the mayor about it?
I haven't personally talked to the mayor about it, but we continue to focus on responding to crimes related to violence, or homicides, or shootings. Obviously, they take precedence when people are injured or badly hurt, related to violence or, other significant injuries. We, tend to prioritize those calls first. Yes, sir.
This is obviously a big spree of violence in a short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any indication that there's an operational impact based off of turmoil and leadership? And if not, what do you think is behind this spree of crime?
So you had a two-part question there. So the men and women of this department, we continue to respond to the community as we have before. Is very hard-working men and women in this police department, and I think our OPOA president also indicated as such. We will continue to respond to the needs of the community, and continue to show up for those that need us. And I can't remember your second question.
I mean, is there any indication that there is a broader linkage here for the violence that we saw here just over the last 48 to 72 hours?
Yeah, over the past 48, 72 hours, we don't have any linkages in terms of the types of crimes that we're seeing. Have various disputes. So nothing that we can say is something for the community to fear. There seem to be isolated incidents where, unfortunately, the conflicts, the disputes got out of hand, where people have lost their lives.
Is the ransomware situation at the city affecting police services at this time? Because we actually called over the weekend and we were told by whoever was running command that they didn't have the information and it was linked to something with the ransomware.
Yeah, I'm not in a position to respond to any questions related to the ransomware. Thank you.
Clarify, it was a homicide on the 2400 block of 67. 2400 block was a homicide.
There was someone detained for that case, sir.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, that's your question?
And Chief, I'm sorry if I couldn't hear that question, but if the mayor were to say, hey, I want you to be police chief, would you accept? And how is your working relationship with the mayor given Chief Armstrong? And I know your ties to Chief Armstrong. Any thoughts on that? Go ahead.
We're going to discuss what we're talking about today, the homicides and violence.
What's your message to the public at this time? This is a lot of violence all happening over 48 hours, 72 hours. In a short period of time. Apparently they're not linked, so these are separate incidents happening throughout the city.
Well, I'll just say to the citizens of this community, which includes myself, we will continue to work hard to help with crime fighting. You know, so that means if you have any video, any information, any tips, any leads, you know, please work with us so that we can, one, hold those responsible for committing these crimes, and two, you know, try to identify ways and solutions that we can try to prevent some of these crimes and violence from occurring in our city.
Did any of these incidents have to do with gang violence? I know you guys have detained a couple of people. Do you know if they're connected to gangs at all?
Yeah, none of the incidents that happened over the weekend had any indication of gang-related activity.
I'm sorry, I was trying to keep track of my notes as quickly as I could. Did we have genders on each of the people that were each of the victims from this weekend?
So I did confirm the gender from the case on 70th and International.
We don't have the details on the others.
We'll get it.
We can follow up.
Yeah, we can
get
follow
you that
up, yeah.
information.
One asking me, just given what we saw over the last weekend, given the changes in leadership that have happened at OPD, Armstrong had several crime initiatives that he's announced for the last year, most recently in September, with him being placed on leave and then also dismissed. Have those initiatives, have there been any changes at all to those strategies and those initiatives that he put in place since he was on leave?
No, we continue to follow those same type of strategies, those same type of initiatives to crime fight. They're in place. We have plans, we have crime plans, and we continue to follow those pathways that we've had set before us for over the past year and the current year.
Will there be a change in terms of operational presence on International Boulevard, especially this stretch that we saw, 3 different shootings?
Yeah, so over the weekend we had increased our patrol measures. Our violent crime operations team came in to give some extra coverage to the area captain, and we continue to use our ceasefire strategy when it's needed to address activity that could be relevant to the violence in this city.
Will you continue to keep that increased presence on International?
Yes, we will. Mm-hmm.
We have time for one last question. There's one more to be asked.
Are you getting support from, because the POA, Noel Gado said that you were asking for support from CHP, FBI, and the sheriffs. Are you getting help from them at all?
Yeah, we continue to get support from them. We also have our task force teams that work collaboratively with the Sheriff's Department and some of the other of our other partners, and so they continue to assist us with investigations and any resources that we need.
Increase maybe like the patrolling or something, because you don't have people, right?
Well, that's something that we have to follow up with you on as it relates to that specific question.
Okay. Thank you all very